I gotta tell you, man, I spent some time with your wife this morning. She told you about that, right?
She did, yes, absolutely.
And it just struck me to the core about the fact that she's, knowing what she's been through, put together an organization like what she's put together. I mean, just what do you think of what she's done?
I actually think it's fantastic. They definitely don't, caregivers in our world definitely don't get enough credit for what they do. And I'll be the first to say it, that I definitely didn't give her enough credit until I really realized how severe my problems were, and how much I was affecting our family unit, and how much I was affecting her with even just the small things, with anxiety and depression, and not really realizing how angry I was or how I was coming off, and her having to deal with that, and others having to deal with that, and her being able to help them see that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, potentially, and that there are ways to let us as the veteran or us as the first responder or whatever know that, hey, you're being a jerk right now, because it's just really easy to do, especially when you're dealing with your own demons, to try to push people away. A lot of times I catch myself doing that, pushing people away because I don't want them to be affected by me, but me pushing them away is hurting them. It hurts them. They don't want to feel that. They don't understand why he doesn't want me, and all I want to do is help him or her or whoever it may be, and that's a big deal. And sorry.
No, you never, as much as you think it through, and you probably have said thank you to her 100, 200, 300 times, this is your chance to get it on film. So why don't you tell her what you think of what she's done for you?
You've saved my life. You've absolutely saved my life, hands down. More than once, unfortunately, or fortunately, I should say, depending on how you look at it. I've definitely been a jerk at times. I'm hard to deal with, and I especially whenever I'm having a lot of high anxiety or in a depressive state. You've been there for me. And to a degree that can't be expressed in words, and thank you.
I love you.
Love you too. Ish.
Yeah. Take us back a little bit, because this is really kind of funny. I want people to understand. You flew over to visit him for just a vacation, and it turned into the rest of your life.
Right. Well, we were already planning on getting married. So he came back home mid-tour for Korea, and he asked me to marry him then. So, we started planning we were going to get married at the Grand Canyon. And that was going to be a year later. We knew he was going to be gone for a little while, and I came and I wanted to spend Christmas with him. I didn't want him or the guys to be alone. I'm a cooker. I like to cook for food. I like to give it to everybody. So I wanted to go over there and make some food for them and have Christmas. And we ended up eloping. I called my mom and said, hey, guess what? This is what I'm going to do. And I'll see you when I get home at the new year. Because I was going to spend a significant amount of time over there.
And even at that time, you kind of understood at that moment when you got married that, you might not make it through the whole 20, right?
Well, at that point, honestly, at that point, I was planning on 20.
You were? Okay.
Absolutely. Well, I should say I was planning on 20, but it was definitely a option, a very viable option, to hit 20. When I first joined the military, I actually only wanted to do 4 or 6, get out, use my GI Bill, and go get a, as we call it, a grown-up job. And the more I was in it, the more the camaraderie, the more I enjoyed what I did, the more it attached to that family. I didn't want to leave it.
Well, tell us a little bit about what it is you did.
Okay, so I was an ammo troop, also an ordnance individual. So anything that was explosive, I maintained, inspected, shipped out, received it, built it. I pretty much accounted for it from cradle to grave. And well, as we like to say usually, I built bombs. I built bombs for a living is what I did. So 500 to 5,000 pound bombs was primarily my purpose in life when I was in the military, along with 30 mil. I supported the A-10 so for most of my career.
You became an instructor.
I did, yes, sir.
Talk a little bit about that.
I got to train 18 to 25-year-olds primarily. I mean, we definitely had all range groups, but primarily 18 to 25. How to build bombs. It was great. It was fantastic. If you will, my legacy. I got to leave my legacy there as in a lot of my students are in Iraq, Afghanistan, different places around the world doing the thing, making it happen, putting warheads on foreheads and blood, mist, and bone chips.
Most of the troops that you commanded, or at least were responsible for, would say that you're part of the reason why they are as successful as they are, because you were a little bit different than most instructors. You were the guy that really gave a you-know-what, really cared about them, helped them pass their test, worked long hours to do things that a lot of other instructors wouldn't do. And do you ever think about that? The fact that you gave as much as you think you got from them?
No.
Why not?
I was doing what I was supposed to do. I was doing what I loved.
But now reflect back on it. You said it yourself. Some of the guys that I trained are over there right now. They're protecting and serving. And they wouldn't be able to do so if it wasn't for you. So sometimes when you get depressed, do you ever call upon that thought that, you know what, I did a lot of really good, solid things?
Why you got to do that to me, Montel? Why you got to bring up like
Because...
And no, I don't. Absolutely, I do not.
Well, why not? Because you know what? I want you to explain this to people at home because they don't understand our dark spots.
As far as it goes, it's in my realm, in the way I think and the way I operate. I like to be a fixer. I like to do things. I like to make it happen. I like to be a part of that. I like to make an impact. We'll just leave it there. And how do you make an impact? Well, we fix what's wrong. Well, when you fix what's wrong, a lot of times you end up getting into this thinking capacity of only identifying what's wrong, not identifying what's good. So I stopped celebrating what was good about a situation and only identifying the wrong. And I kept that up and I kept that up. And then it got into this realm where I was constantly only focusing on the bad, and then all of a sudden I was focusing on me being bad and what I did wrong and only what I did wrong. And I get in this very limited view of thinking that everything I did was wrong, and that the only way to fix that was to look at certain different avenues. And one of those avenues was suicide. And whenever I was thinking about suicide, and even to this day when I still think about suicide, I do it very, what I call rationally, which would be considered unrationally. I look at it like, hey, you know what? Here's the pros, here's the cons. What are the pros, what are the cons? Well, the pros are this situation would be fixed. What are the cons? Well, my family might have to, make some changes. Some people might be sad. But you know what? But it fixed this problem. And in that point, this solution to this problem looks so fantastic because it's obtainable, it's graspable. You can see what the benefit outcome might be, and you're not thinking selfishly. You're thinking like, you know what? This is going to help them in the long run if I'm not here. They're going to be better off if I'm not here. And even to this day, I absolutely struggle with the fact that if I knew my family was going to be set up and could be without me, I would do it in a heartbeat.
Yeah, but don't you, again, stop for 1 second. I just asked you about the troops that you literally trained.
Sorry, yeah.
And no, you trained, you supervised. Those are the guys that are saving lives today. Now let's stop for the military for a second and just think about this relationship. I'm going to be selfish for Rachel for a second. But guess what? You know how proud she is to know that she could help other caregivers? how proud she is to know that she can help you, that's given her something to hold on to and to grasp in her life. So not only would you make it worse for her and make her sad, you would take away a part of her that gives her a reason to get up every day. You ever think about it that way? Turn that for a second. That's part of the biggest problem I think that a lot of guys like us have when you come back. You're only willing to look at, you ever looked at a beach ball? The beach ball has how many colors on it?
Oh, normally like 3.
Well, yeah, and they go around 6 times, right?
Yeah.
So around a ball. At any moment in time, normally a beach ball is white, red, yellow. So it's white, red, yellow, white, red, yellow. If I'm holding white, red, yellow here, and you're looking at the other side, it's white, red, yellow, I shift it just a little bit, it becomes yellow, white, red. And mine does too. So if I'm looking at it like this side, I flip it around a little bit more, one little wedge changes the entire picture you see. And too often we lock in on just one side, don't even want to shift it just a little bit to the right or the left. Let's go back for a minute. I want you to take me through when times went from being the best. You got out of boot camp. You got stationed overseas. Times were best. You were in there working away at building bombs. Then all of a sudden, what was the first thing that started making things go bad for you? Can you remember? You got injured a couple times, right?
Yes.
So was it one of the first injuries that bothered you?
I'm trying to think, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
Honestly, to be totally honest, probably the first time I really started having some issues was right after I got back from Korea, and not because of reintegration with her and reintegration is its own whole animal, but reintegration into the States itself, I guess, would be you spend a year with a group of individuals, mm-hmm. and you become tight-knit. Everybody's kind of, GIs kind of hang out with each other, and then the GIs, and there's everybody else. And, you kind of roam around like that. And coming back into the States and just kind of everything being dumped on you again outside of your little circle, I think that was very difficult for me to readapt back to a high populace of people. I know.
Did you notice anything at that same time, Rachel? When did you start to notice that Matt didn't wake up with a smile, but started waking up with a frown, started waking up more depressed? When did you start noticing that?
I think that there's a small bit that noticed, maybe after Korea, because it was a crowd issue, mm-hmm. that he would have some issues. At that time, I was going to school on a college campus. So the amount of people just coming from every different direction, when 8:50 hits, all classes let out, and you've got people coming out of buildings, you got people coming up from underneath the ground that we had, like in a lower kind of basement type space, and that. What I really started thinking about it was probably after his first deployment when he came back home, and it amplified the crowd issue. And
during that deployment, now where were you at during that first deployment?
I was in Balad, okay. Iraq.
Okay, and you're behind the scenes, and I say not actually out on the battlefield, but right. You were back at Depot, mm-hmm. and literally back there, that's where you're building, putting the ordnance together, making sure that everything goes off. Yes. I said to people that don't understand, you don't have to be in combat to suffer from the combat PTSD. Just the knowledge that maybe 2 of those ordnances you put together didn't go off at the right time that might have been responsible for another soldier's death is enough strain to put on a guy that you don't even understand. Every single minute that you were working, every bullet, every bomb you made, your heart and soul was going into that to make sure that protected a life. And how often did you think that maybe it was my fault that something may have happened to somebody else?
There were things that made you think about that. I think my stress really came from the thought of being fired on sitting around that much ordnance.
Right.
I mean, realistically.
Let's talk about that for a second, because I don't know if people understand. You're in a depot with enough rockets red glare to set this whole city on fire.
Correct.
And you're sleeping 50 feet away. One of those mortar rounds that were coming over each night, all the explosions you were hearing in the distance, did that make you think that maybe one of them might slip through here and hit that pile?
Oh, absolutely. It's an absolute reality, truth, possibility. And one of the problems with it is we're very complacent with it. As far as, especially when we're on active duty, we dismiss it. We disassociate from it because, you know what, if we actually sat down and realized and took a part of that, our own mortality, we'd probably handle it a hell of a lot differently. You know, I mean, it's kind of scary when you're definitely sitting next to, let's say, a 500-pound weapon, and you know you hear sirens going off, and then they're hitting, they're hitting a mortar. It may be outside the wire of the facility, but you're still talking about something close enough. There's still somebody shooting explosives at me while I'm sitting on explosives. So I don't know if I'm answering your question.
No,
I'm trying.
You are. And that's when the insomnia kind of started, right?
Absolutely. We got attacked a lot during shift change for me. We were one of the only units that were 24 hours. So we would switch out at a certain time that was not really morning, but not really night. So every time we switched over, for whatever reason, things became very active. And things were active throughout the day or throughout the night, and it would be when you were sleeping. So sometimes you'd wake up to sirens, and sometimes you'd wake up to a CRAM going off, and a CRAM is designed to shoot mortars out of the air as it flies. But you'd wake up to those things going off, and I mean, it would scare the poop out of you. It's a lot of disassociation with moments of extreme clarity, and that extreme clarity is usually what ends up causing us problems.
When did you injure your back?
Over the 11 years.
Mm-hmm.
But,
hauling 50 pounds,
120 pound
pound
ammo cans, picking things up, different bomb components on the tables, lifting them from the ground to the top, in repetition motion. Even lifting something like 25 pounds from the ground to the table, you do that 1,600 times in a day. You're putting some wear on your joints.
And at least 2 or 3 times you didn't bend your knees, you didn't grab it the right way, you just grabbed it and threw it up.
Absolutely.
Somebody's talking to you, not paying attention.
Absolutely.
So you're injuring.
And then it started with my feet going numb when I ran, and I'm like, oh, that's kind of weird, but I'm good. And I kept going, and it really started to affect me as far as physically goes. Obviously, it's gotten to a point that's needing medical attention or something along those lines. But it started with my feet going numb, and my whole leg goes numb, and I have a tendency to fall when that happens and I say numb because I can't feel it, but it still hurts.
Right, sure.
So it's kind of a weird halfway in between, but just constant wear and tear, degenerative joint disease, just from doing the job for that long, moving heavy things, even though we had machinery.
But while you're in it, you're not really in it.
Oh, no.
No.
Absolutely not. And the idea is to get the job done. What happens when you get the job done? Well, when we get the job done, we can go home. Or when we get the job, to a point we can go, hit the rack, whatever that might be, whether stateside or in the poo, if you will.
Sure.
But
so when you got back here, you got back to Texas, right? And that's were you going to school? What did you were saying when you first started recognizing that maybe some of this is lingering, right? When you got back from deployment?
That was in Arizona.
Arizona.
Stationed in Arizona.
I really started having nightmares about being blown up. Mm-hmm. I think some of it I think it's a combination of what I did for a living, and then on top of that, anxiety and fear of when I was downrange, that high stress, that high tempo, coming back and having that kind of cut off. I started having some bad nightmares and anxiety when I went to sleep, and that's really when it started, when I came back from Iraq, and then got situated and back in the workplace. I didn't see a whole lot of it initially, and one of the reasons why I was working a night shift. Mm-hmm. So I would work a night shift and then sleep a couple hours and wake up at 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning. So I might get off at 11 or 12 at night and be up at a normal time throughout the day. Right. So I wasn't sleeping a whole lot, and I was constantly working. We had a new baby, deployment baby number 1, aka Jackson. And so there wasn't a whole lot of sleep to begin with. And I definitely, things really started to take place right around 2010, and that's whenever I pulled back from into an instructor position. Set hours, I wasn't working all the time. I was on a day shift. I really started noticing problems then.
Did you start noticing them about the same time?
That's when I started pushing it.
Started pushing?
Yeah, he was so angry. He wasn't who he used to be. He would have these outbursts, and honestly, the best way to describe it is more of a rage than just plain anger. Like anger, he gets mad, he gets over it. There's rage that stays there, and it's something that is hard to have projected onto you and hard to forgive.
Right. But you forgave.
Yeah.
You understood.
I didn't understand. I didn't know what we were going through at that point in time. It was a whole new world. It was a whole new journey. It took us quite a bit of time to get to a place where I did learn and I did understand, and we could communicate.
Could you sense the insomnia? Could you sense the night terrors? Because again, you weren't really sleeping at night. No. So you were sleeping a little bit in the early morning hours, getting up, and there's light outside. But is he way different when it starts to get dark?
He can go to sleep for a little bit, and then he'll be up all hours. And at that time, we did have a small child, so he was up at all different hours. So it took us a little bit to really realize what was going on. That so much more was accumulative than just being a tired new parents. And when we finally did, that's when I pushed and he went for help. And that was kind of, okay, something's not right. Life isn't right. This isn't just what everybody else is going through. Something is new.
You went to the hospital, you went to counseling, you started talking.
Inpatient treatment.
When did you start to understand that, you know what, this is a little bit much. I think I need to really...
Well, unfortunately, whenever I really understood when things were too much was there's been several times where I was willing to take my own life, and I was ready and I was about to do it. And the first time that I really realized I needed help, I had the gun in my mouth. I was locked, I was loaded, it was chambered, it was Glock 21, so 45, it would have done the job pretty well. And I had it, and I was sitting, and she came through the door with my little man. And so I immediately hid the pistol, covered everything up, and tried to play it cool. And
did you recognize that at that time?
Not exactly. I knew something was wrong. I knew something was different. I knew that he wasn't where he should be. But I can't openly say, yes, I knew this was the definite moment that, hey, we need to go together to go get somewhere.
And we'd had a verbal altercation before she left the house. I can't remember whether that was why she left the house or not, or she was grocery shopping or whatever. But and that was really the first time that I realized that, hey, I almost did that. I almost pulled that trigger because I was ready. I walked around with my note in my pocket for about a week prior to that, saying, describing what I needed done, what I wanted done after I'd done it. And then afterwards, I felt super guilty, and I felt super guilty about. And the most horrible thing I can think of to say about this is, I felt guilty because I was going to leave a mess if I did it there.
Right.
And that was the only reason I felt guilty, and I knew that was bad. and I knew I needed a little bit more feeling than that. And my work, depression, anxiety, all those things, PTSD, they consume you. They take control of your life if you're not getting help with it, and they change you, and they change certain things about you. And I know my work ethic wasn't affected, but my work quality was affected. My, just my demeanor, my attitude. I'm usually a very joking, outward person all the time, so I was using that to hide behind as well. So my work productivity dropped significantly. There were signs there. My command was looking after me, asking me if I was okay, and I'm like, oh no, I'm good. Mm-hmm. And
meanwhile, the pain setting in from all the injuries.
Pain setting in. I can't lose the weight I need to I'm a big-bodied individual, so PT test was always, our physical fitness test was always a major demand on my life. I had to watch my diet, I had to run all the time, I had to do all these things.
Which is hurting that degenerative bone disease.
Which is
Yes.
amplifying my own conditions, as far as, especially like my shoulder, doing push-ups, and then my back running, and my feet going numb, and all these things are constantly compounding on each other until you have a panic attack or something, and you think you're having a heart attack. My first panic attack, they sent me to the hospital because I thought I was having a heart attack. Hell, I thought I was having a heart attack until I got checked out, and they're like, well, nothing was there, so there's a couple options here, and one of them was this. But I realized I needed help then, and then the second time that I really went in and was hospitalized for was, and I realized I needed help is the most horrible thing I could say about the way that my condition has progressed in myself is that my plan got better. my plan to execute got better, and my plan was to put the kids to bed. At this time we had two. Deployment baby number 1, aka Jackson, and then oops, it's number 2. And
she wasn't supposed to come.
It's a bad joke, but I keep telling it because it's fun. But we had baby number 2, and I was going to put them to bed. I was going to put the whole family to bed, and then I was going to go somewhere else and do it. I can still picture the truck I was going to use. I can still see the knife that I was going to use. I could still see the place that in my own mind, what was going to happen, how I was going to do it. My timeline was all lined up. My note was written. My note was, I had everything planned out. And I know I'm kind of focusing on this note thing, but the note thing was for me to say how much I loved my family. And that was really what all that was written in there, was that I love you guys. And this wasn't about that I didn't love you, or that y'all didn't love me enough. This was something that I couldn't overcome myself, and I was trying to fix something. And again, it goes back to that, once that possible solution, I just couldn't let go of it, and still have a hard time letting go of that. That's a potentially good or correct solution to that problem, which is suicide. And so I was having problems. We'd already been through a hospitalization for several weeks, months, whatever. I don't even remember how long I was in. And she kind of started recognizing me. And now one of the things I could say to my fellow vets and things that are having problems is, she's not in your shit because she doesn't care, or that she thinks you're inept, or that she thinks that you can't do it. She knows you absolutely can do everything. She's in there because she cares. And that was something that I didn't understand at first, is I saw it as somewhat disrespectful. Why are you asking me what I'm doing? Why are you asking me where I'm at? What are you questioning me for? And it wasn't out of disrespect. It was, hey, I need to know where you're at because I'm worried about you. And that was something that took me a long time to realize. But she saw me having problems. She knew I was having problems, and she handed me my baby girl. And I ended up going to sleep that night. I ended up going to sleep in the rocking chair next to the door that I was planning on leaving to go kill myself. And that next morning I realized, hey, you know what, I gotta get some help. I cannot keep doing this. Not only am I, I was essentially a danger to myself. And that was something that was very hard for me to realize and come to immersion to.
But now that you've gotten out, And it's a lifelong journey now. It'll always have to be there to finally get you to change that paradigm, to look a little bit differently at that ball. But can you honestly look me in the face and tell me that it's not better?
Oh, it's better.
Definitely better.
It's better. It absolutely is better. Do I still struggle with it? Absolutely. I
Sure.
struggle with it almost every day.
We all struggle.
And to anybody out there that would be interested in anything, I would ask you that you give me one more breath. When you think you're done, give me one more breath.
What do you think about military makeover? They're giving you an opportunity at a new breath.
It's exciting.
Exciting.
It's pretty awesome. No, that's pretty. They're doing some absolutely amazing things for us, and I can't say thank you enough.
I'm going to go back to something I said earlier because I want you to start twisting that head a little bit, just a touch. Do you know what you've just done for so many veterans? Do you really realize just by talking into that camera what you've been able to do, what you've been able to share for so many other military families? Do you understand it?
Probably not to this matter.
If I said to you that you just tonight changed so many lives, the same way that you changed the lives of those guys that are still on the battlefield, keeping other men protected, would you believe me? But now I'm going to say to you, believe me. Do you believe me?
I want to.
Do you believe me? You have to. Got to, brother. Thank you.
Thank you.
So much. Rachel, thank you so much for being the example you are. That's what military makeover is all about.